in all due deference to my father who went to Wharton, a recent Wharton grad had gotten a big job with the government and had to drive through a rural area in order to get to his new job site. But while en route, his progress was considerably slowed by a shepherd crossing the road with a very large flock of sheep. Bored and impatient, the young man said to the shepherd, "I will bet you $100 against one of your sheep if I can tell you the exact number in this flock." The shepherd thought it over and thought, well, it's a big flock. Sure, why not? 973, said the Wharton man. The shepherd was astonished because that was exactly right. Okay, he said, I'm a man of my word. Take an animal. The Wharton grad then picked one up and put it in his car. Wait, said the shepherd. Let me have a chance to get even. Double or nothing if I can guess your exact occupation. The Wharton grad said, sure. The shepherd responded, you're an economist working for the government. Amazing, said the Wharton grad. You're right, but tell me, how did you deduce that? Well, said the shepherd, bring back my dog and I'll tell you. The average sheepdog is smarter than the average sheep, and neither have been to Wharton. Even so, sheep have very good memories, much better than we normally think, and very good hearing. They recognize the voice of their shepherd. They even recognize human faces and remember them for like 2 years. And as frustrating as sheep can be to care for, sheep will follow a shepherd who has proven faithful and avoid one who is abusive. Their natural state is to cluster together in groups for protection. They are gregarious and social animals. And if you ever actually hear sheep, as I have in the early evening in Scotland and Pitlochry, they make an incredible racket. Sheep make noises that you did not know sheep were capable of making. It sounds like the noisiest sheep gossip convention ever. Because they're quiet during the day, and in the early evening, it all breaks loose. Left to their own devices, however, sheep will graze land down to nothing. They'll just keep eating that grass till their even roots are gone. They must be led to new pastures before they destroy the old pastures. They have to be kept out of fields where crops are growing and away from danger. But a good shepherd can lead sheep along narrow paths and even through streams, despite the fact that sheep are not very fond of getting wet and cannot swim. But sheep who do not have a shepherd, or who have a very bad shepherd, are in trouble. They have been domesticated for over 10,000 years. And the way they have been bred now, they have to be shorn regularly because their fleece never stops growing. It can grow and grow to such a point that it actually can kill them because it weighs so much. If a sheep gets flipped on its back, it literally cannot right itself. Of all livestock, sheep are probably the most labor-intensive, in need of both general oversight and individual care. It is no wonder that people are often compared to sheep. It was during the festival of dedication at Jerusalem when this encounter took place. In other words, it was Hanukkah. Jesus had been teaching in Jerusalem for a few months, but because it was winter, he was under shelter for much of the time, and in this case, he was walking through Solomon's porch. This was the porch of judgment, the place where kings of old would make judgments and exercise justice for those brought before him. And Jesus, the very embodiment of divine judgment and justice, walked through these courts as a human being. But everywhere he went, he had challengers, demanding to know if he was the Messiah. They said, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, let us know. Speak plainly." But they didn't really want to know because they were in suspense and they wanted to follow him. They wanted to know so that they'd have something with which to entrap him. Jesus responded, "I did tell you, but you do not believe. The works I do in my Father's name testify about me." The problem, of course, is that that is subjective. Jesus' actions speak for themselves, he says, but we interpret things very differently. For Jesus, for us, it is very logical that healing somebody on the Sabbath is clearly the work of God. It is obvious. It is right there. But what did these people see? A lawbreaker, a Sabbath breaker. And everything he did to help the poor and the outcast only infuriated them more. But the reason they did not believe, said Jesus, the reason they did not see the truth is that they were not his sheep. He is the good shepherd. Jesus said, "My sheep listen to my voice, and they hear. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. And my Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one can snatch them out of my Father's hand." Now we need to stop and think about this for a moment because, like most Bible readings, it just flows over us. We're so used to Jesus saying things like this that it doesn't have an impact. But put yourself there. This is a human being speaking. These are outrageous words. There can only be a few conclusions about someone who speaks like this. He could be a complete nutcase, delusional, insane, thinking that he is something that he's not. He could be a very clever liar, deliberately deceiving people, using his charismatic personality. Or he could be what he says he is and who he says he is. But there really are no other choices. He's either delusional, lying, or telling the truth. What he actually said is something that a human being is incapable of. Jesus is claiming to be divine because only God has this kind of power. And then he clinches it by uttering the most controversial statement in the Bible. He says, "I and my Father are one." The word one is simply the word one, as in there's one. But it can also mean other things. It can mean one in nature or one in purpose. It's tempting for us to pluck this sentence out from all the others and sort of run with it. We could go into all kinds of abstract philosophical meanings. But context is important. And the context here is that of a shepherd having the power to protect his flock. Jesus was saying that both he and the Father were one in their plan to protect us and the power to do so. The Jewish leaders who surrounded him were in no doubt about this claim to divinity, because in the next few verses, they did promptly pick up stones with which to stone him for blasphemy. John's gospel was the last gospel to be written, near the end of the first century. But the affirmation Jesus is Lord is early, very, very early. And to say Jesus is Lord is to say Jesus is God. It is to identify Jesus with divinity. We don't understand how. If anyone here can explain the incarnation to me, I'd love to know, but we can't. It is a deep spiritual mystery how a human being can also embody God. And yet that is what we are seeing, and that is what we are hearing, and that is the earliest confession of the church. If Jesus, like God the Father, is our shepherd, then that does make us sheep. And as much as we don't want to admit it, humans do bear an uncanny resemblance to sheep. Do you know any people who look like that? Because I do. We are herd animals. It's why we're so easy to manipulate. It is statistically proven that 95% of us follow 5% of us, and we don't even know we're doing it. We're so easy for markets to manipulate. It's why people in social media can just change opinion and switch people this way and that way without us even being aware. It's because we're herd animals. I remember living in Scotland, and the soccer games over there, called football, everybody is standing. They're not sitting down. And the amount of times when there was a panic and a crush happened because people got frightened and they couldn't all get out of the gate at the same time, just like a stampede, people died. We see that when people are fleeing for their lives. We go into an irrational zone. We do not behave like thoughtful individuals. We behave like a herd. We respond to peer pressure with great sensitivity. We'll even act against our own self-interest in order to fit in. I looked at my yearbook a while back, and I could not believe it. Do you know every single girl had long hair parted in the middle? All of them. But go to a senior home and look at the old ladies and the old men. Don't they all look alike too? We conform. It's what we do because we belong to a group. But it's not entirely an insult to compare us to sheep, because sheep are not as dumb as they look. They have incredibly good memories. They can remember up to 50 different human and sheep faces. They can read expressions on both. They know when that shepherd's had a really bad day or is happy. They're like, hey, avoid him. You know, look, dude, he had a fight with his wife. Let's just stay over here right now. He'll be over it eventually. They know. They respond to a smile. They're like, he's frowning. And they can read each other's moods too. Sheep become best friends. They're playful. They can even work as a team to solve problems, like how to get in that field with the really sweet grass that the shepherd's trying to keep us out of. Sheep grieve. They don't always like each other. They can have attitude. And rams will vie for dominance. And I was blown away to discover that 8% of sheep are gay. Who knew? But all sheep need a shepherd, because without a shepherd, they get in trouble. We as sheep listen to Jesus' voice because he knows us. He knows us all by name. Our strengths, our weaknesses, our fears, and our hopes. And a good shepherd does know his flock individually. He knows which sheep is skittish. He knows which one is going to be a problem. He knows how to handle them. He knows which ones have chronic health issues. A good shepherd is familiar with each and every individual. And we, too, need to be cared for and loved as individuals, as well as a group. And because Jesus is our shepherd and knows us all by name, no one can snatch us out of his hand. We are protected from wolves and treacherous weather. We are even protected from our own foolishness. A shepherd takes care of all needs, from the small to the very large. To be a sheep is not always easy. We try our best, but we still get in trouble. We can be so single-focused that we dig ourselves into a hole, eat everything there is, and can't look around and see anywhere else to go. Other times we wander away from the flock and get in danger. We imagine that we're tough and independent and don't need anyone else. But the reality is, we do need each other, and we do need a shepherd. Because there are a lot of different voices out there calling for our attention, and those voices are in conflict with one another, pulling us here and pulling us there, in all different directions. But God, who knows us, who calls us, will always call us in the right direction. God is our protector. So whether it is something as small as a splinter or deadly as a wolf, our shepherd is always there. Our shepherd is strong enough to protect us, gentle enough to heal us, knows us in every detail, and loves us the way we are. Amen.